Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for this very special session webinar that we have focusing on the latest and greatest version of ConstructionSuite, what will be ConstructionSuite 9. My name is Taylor Pruitt. I will be here with my colleague, Holly Gibson.
Hi, everyone.
And we are really excited to talk to you guys about some of the new enhancements that we have to what has been kind of the most long-lived product that I can ever remember seeing as far as the desktop software goes. ConstructionSuite is chugging along stronger than ever, and for those of you who aren't familiar with the history of UDA, I mean, this product is in almost its 20th year of development and really has been going strong with the name ConstructionSuite, I guess, for a little over a decade now, but started back with Construction Office and a few other components in the early 2000s and 1999 or so. And really, it's pretty incredible, Holly, to see what our team has done to continue adding value and functionality to the software that has been providing so much value to people already.
Yeah, it really is. I cannot think of a better way really to close out a successful 2017 than with a brand new version of ConstructionSuite. I was actually just speaking with a client 10 minutes ago about ConstructionSuite. Hi, Vince, if you're out there. But we were just really talking about what a powerhouse this really is. I mean, if you need it to run a construction project, ConstructionSuite has you covered. I mean, everything from really powerful estimating, awesome reporting, powerful workflows. I mean, it's really all covered in ConstructionSuite. So I am excited at some of the new features that we're introducing. And I think, again, it's just such a great way to cap off the year to introduce a new version of ConstructionSuite for everyone.
Yeah, and, there's really no better time to get started. I know one of the biggest things that we hear from clients or from potential clients even is if you've got an ongoing business, it's typically a little difficult to find a time where there's a lull where you feel like you can pick up a software or really start implementing a new system, even if you know it's for the best and your company needs it. The time constraint is always a concern, but I've found that, around the holidays, even though people like to spend a lot of time with family, it's typically a great time to really pick this up, and for many reasons other than, the time availability, also because of the fiscal year and starting, with January 1 and starting with a couple things as far as your books go, or resolutions even if you want to tie it into that. It's kind of Christmas come a little bit early for a lot of our clients and potential clients.
Exactly.
And so with this, as Holly mentioned, this has really been something exciting for us. We've seen a lot of big features coming to this version of ConstructionSuite that we feel like a lot of our, let's say, power users have been asking about for a while, but also some features that are going to help everybody. There's features that really continue to build on ConstructionSuite as not only a central portion of your project management and something that's going to help run your business, but also expanding on some integrations and things that work with programs out there that you might be transitioning from or using in conjunction with ConstructionSuite based on familiarity or any other reason to help make that transition into ConstructionSuite, if you're just now getting started, much easier.
Yeah, exactly. I know, Taylor, you'll jump into so much of this in more detail as we jump into the webinar, but I think what we'll really see from this latest version of ConstructionSuite are some pretty powerful enhancements geared around additional accessibility, whether that's how you're accessing ConstructionSuite or the way in which we integrate with other softwares and programs. And then, additionally, things that, I always think about ConstructionSuite really as providing this recipe for success, so you're really able to come in and create this repeatable process. You figure out what works for you and your company, and you create that recipe for how you run successful jobs and make sure that they're profitable. And so we've really added in some additional features and tools, some of the things that you'll talk about from an estimating and templating perspective that really help our users to create that personal success recipe for your company and your projects.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And everybody does it a little bit different, and ConstructionSuite is as flexible as they come when it comes to some of these features and can be used in any industry. So today I'm excited to take a look at some of these new features. Many of them will apply to everybody in this webinar. Some of them will certainly stand out more than others to those of you using certain features or certain parts of the product, but I guess the important thing to take away is that no matter which of these features you're most interested in, there's some extreme value to be had and to be added to a software that's already extremely valuable for many of our users. So can't wait to really show you guys the new features and start getting the questions coming in and really answering those to figure out how they'll best suit you. And on that note, Holly is going to be helping me out here. We're going to be keeping an eye on some of the questions coming in throughout the webinar. So note to all you attendees out there, you can send questions in. You're encouraged to send questions in about any of the features we're talking about, because I'm liable to get pretty excited about a certain train of thought and start running down the road and completely skip over something that is a pretty high priority question or something that a lot of people are interested in. So send those in, let your voice be heard, and I will definitely be doing my best to keep an eye on those, and Holly as well.
Yep. I'll be standing by to answer, so I'll be answering those as quickly as I can. And as always, if I don't get to your question personally, then we'll try to cover it at the end of the webinar today or follow up after today's session.
Absolutely. And so that being said, it looks like we've had a couple people trickling in over the last 5 or 6 minutes, but it seems like we've hit a pretty steady attendance right now. So it looks like we're going to be all set to start diving in and talking about some of these awesome new features. Holly, if you'll be on standby to take a look at some of these questions, then we should be okay.
Yeah, I think we'll be good.
Awesome. And so for everyone else out there, I know we've hinted or kind of teased at a couple different features or a couple different types of feature through our little intro here, talking about some of the things that you're going to see today. And I guess what you're seeing right now, of course, is our Today screen on ConstructionSuite. But I do want to start by talking about some of the partnerships and integrations that we have added to ConstructionSuite 9. For those of you out there using outside programs or things that might tie into ConstructionSuite as well. And so I'll start with the most obvious one, is going to be QuickBooks 2018. So ConstructionSuite 9 will be fully compatible with QuickBooks 2018. We have been the industry leader in QuickBooks integration and job costing integration for well over a decade at this point. You're not going to find anything more powerful than ConstructionSuite's integration with QuickBooks. So, of course, we've continued that partnership, have renewed our integrations for QuickBooks 2018 here in ConstructionSuite 9. So if you're keeping up to date there and upgrading your QuickBooks, do so right alongside that with ConstructionSuite and you'll be good to go. We've also, on some of the more popular import formats, expanded what we have to offer with Microsoft Project imports. So different file formats, XML, text, CSV, a lot of other formats are available now to make it easier for you to get your data into our system and communicate with outside programs. Obviously, there's no need for programs like that with what ConstructionSuite offers with scheduling, but we certainly understand that many of you are working with outside companies, whether it's subcontractors or contractors, architects, whatever it may be, that might already be using programs like Microsoft Project. So we want to make it as easy as possible for you to keep that communication open, import the files they send you, export files to them that they can use, and just keep those channels open for the success of your business. So lots of new import formats there. We've updated to integrate with CAD Soft and Visioneer 12. So lots of CAD integration opportunities there. Not much is going to change on the process, just support for the new formats. And finally, I do want to spend a little time on this one. We have expanded our partnership and our integrations with PlanSwift. For those of you who don't know, we have for a while been integrating or had support to integrate with many different CAD programs, most of the large ones across the industry. And the process of doing that has been very seamless and extremely powerful to take those digital takeoffs and those material lists from programs like eTakeoff, PlanSwift, Chief Architect, CAD Soft and Visioneer, anything that's really in the realm of the major market, AutoCAD, Revit. There's 7 or 8 of them, of course, that we do tie into. But I'm pretty excited to announce that PlanSwift, we've taken it a step farther now and actually introduced a plugin to their store. So where previously it was an export and import format from PlanSwift to ConstructionSuite, you can now install a plugin and with just the click of a button, create a ConstructionSuite estimate. And really for today, that's how I'm going to kick us off, because some of our new features are focused around estimating. So what better way to get into it than to actually open up PlanSwift real quick and kick over an estimate from a materials list that I have. And so I realize that many of you out there aren't using PlanSwift. This is still a concept that can be applied to many other CAD programs, not with a plugin, but with an export-import if you're looking to do that. I'm not really going to spend any time on the PlanSwift functionality, so obviously not a PlanSwift webinar today. If those of you not using it aren't really interested, don't worry. But what I can show you is a pretty cool function here when you open up PlanSwift and go to their estimating tab, similar to a lot of other programs where you can really see your materials list, see all of your items and your areas, your descriptions and dimensions, your quantities. In PlanSwift, if you actually utilize a division and a subdivision column in your PlanSwift estimating view, this will tie directly into your ConstructionSuite categories for division and subcategories for subdivision, and then all of these items and materials and labor items actually become estimate items in ConstructionSuite. And so I already have an export to OnCost button here. For those of you looking for it when you get your hands on ConstructionSuite 9, it's actually going to be up here in the data menu. If you just go to data and install PlanSwift plugin, with just the click of a button, it will actually activate this button on your toolbar ribbon up here in the estimating tab. And once you've got your takeoff finished out and you've got your materials and areas all worked out, you can just click this button and you'll see that immediately it's going to open up a brand new estimate for us here in ConstructionSuite. And I'll go ahead and move into this. And if you kind of took note of what we were doing there, those divisions I mentioned have now become our categories. General requirements, concrete, metals. If I flip back over, you'll see that those are in here assigned to different items. And then the subdivisions, like materials, labor, subcontractor equipment, those have all come in as subcategories in these estimate categories. And if I actually drill in and go a little bit farther, you can of course see that those items came in with their quantities, with their costs. All of that information is already present. So for those of you who have been doing a lot of work in PlanSwift already, or generating your takeoffs there, or have outside sources that you're contracting out to do these, and they're sending you information from PlanSwift, you can import that directly into your ConstructionSuite estimate, and from here actually go through and start your Quickbooks integration, start your reporting, your job costing, your resource management, anything that really comes after the estimate, proposal generation included, and really leverage that so that you're not doing any double entry. And that's something that we're really excited to announce and really proud to announce. We've seen a larger and larger portion of our client base start to use PlanSwift, so it was something that we really thought was worth our time to go through and actually get a plugin that was a one-click estimate creation directly from their site to make that workflow easier for all of our clients using those programs. That being said, if you have any additional takeoff programs you're using that you would like to see something similar, let us know. We'll definitely be taking inventory of all of our client requests and seeing if we have any other ones out there that are as popular or as used that we can get in communication with and see if we can do something similar. That's always on the table. We're always looking to add integration and capabilities. So if you're not a PlanSwift person, if you're using something different, let us know. We'll look into it, see if they offer anything similar, and get your hands on something like that, if at all possible. So some really cool things there. Again, everything ConstructionSuite does is focused on streamlining and reducing data entry and time spent doing activities. So on that note, an additional thing that we have really added and enhanced, I guess we should say, in ConstructionSuite 9, because they've been around for a version or two, is the ability to really estimate with assemblies in your ConstructionSuite estimates. And with that, what assemblies are, for anybody who's not familiar with them, are really just collections of items. So an assembly could be for a wall system, it could be for a bay window, it could be for a square foot of roofing. All of those things are going to need different components, whether it's nails and shingles and roof tacks, or whether it's labor and drywall and insulation and framing studs. All of those things are going to be part of an assembly that you can group items together and actually estimate for them all at once instead of individually. And so in ConstructionSuite, you have the ability to flip any of these estimate subcategories to an assembly. So under this method column, instead of a lump sum or a detailed, you can actually flip it to assembly. And what that will do is that, it's not going to change anything right off the bat. It doesn't recalculate anything. But you actually have the ability to put in quantities at the subcategory level. And now if I put in a 2, you'll actually see that that goes through and doubles all of the quantities of these materials. So there's a hard relationship or a finite relationship between each item in this subcategory. So for maybe 1 square foot or 1 man hour of labor, you have all of these different items and the quantities associated. So you can very easily come in here and adjust your estimate and say that you have a 5 quantity for the subcategory level, and it automatically multiplies each of your unit quantities by that. And so if I return back to 1, you'll see that it goes back to the standard ones. And so assemblies can be created in Estimate that way, kind of on the fly using that method column. We also have assemblies in the items database. So we do partner with RS Means and with other outside programs, but RS Means is our cost data provider for our clients in US and Canada. And in this items database, it comes preloaded with some assemblies, but of course you can create your own as well. But just for an example of what some of these might look like, if we go look at an interiors assembly and look at interior finishes and maybe go to wall finishes, you'll start to see some of these assemblies are made up of multiple items. Sometimes it's just a material and labor quote. Sometimes it's a little bit more. Let's see if I can find some assemblies that have multiple quotes in there, substructure maybe. Now you'll see there's 3 labor quotes and a material quote, all part of this assembly. And for every 4 quantity here, we have 0.003 quantity here. And if I insert this entire assembly into the estimate, you'll see that in the background, this will actually go through and add those into the estimate as a new subcategory. And I actually think I had some expired quotes there for the RS Means database, so for my own protection, it gave me a little warning there saying that I couldn't use those. But it would enter a subcategory just like this, saying, hey, these are your interior construction items underneath here, and set the method to assembly, set the quantity to 1, or whatever you chose to put in with the assembly. And then you could go in and actually manipulate that and change the entire subcategory at once. So again, the end result is not anything that you couldn't have already achieved by going through and manually changing each one of those, but by using assemblies and tying that quantity at the subcategory level, it allows you to go through and actually modify or manipulate each of those quantities at the same time, keep them in a specific ratio, and of course saves you the time, which is what this is all about, of going through and editing each and every item quantity to get the desired result. Also, it does the math for you, which is nice. And so with this, there are quite a few other things that we have gone the extra mile with, and I won't go through every single one of the reports, but we have made it to where you can report better on your estimate with these assemblies included, so that it's properly showing your assembly quantities. If you stick this at the lump sum level, sending over to QuickBooks and other programs like that is actually picking up on these quantities and these costs at the subcategory level, whereas it previously wasn't before. So the external integrations and report generation is now much more cohesive with the assembly quantities and some of the things you're trying to achieve there. Check those out if you think it's something that's going to be useful for you. You do have to have a certain level of standardization from job to job in order for assemblies to really be useful for you. But for those people who do have that standardization and have the groups of items or assemblies that you tend to use in multiple jobs, this is a huge benefit and a huge time saver where you can go through and really condense your estimate into a subcategory level quantity instead of all the individual items. So lots of great things happening here in the estimate, but one of my favorite things that we've added here in ConstructionSuite 9 and has been probably the most vocal feature, I guess, that we've heard from our client base or something similar to it, is the ability to control in a more permission basis what columns of the estimate are editable, or to lock down the estimate for editing once you've created the proposal and actually set that in stone. And I'm pleased to announce that we have actually introduced that now and have given you the ability to create that estimate and then lock down certain features, templates included. So you can lock down columns and templates, and then when you create new estimates off of them, have those columns locked. And what that's really going to aim to introduce is more standardization, more control over who's editing what. So just to paint a few scenarios here, QuickBooks Integration, again, is one of the biggest reasons why this is a valuable tool. I can't tell you how many bookkeepers I've had to talk to that after we've gone through with the estimators on ConstructionSuite, set aside an estimate template, know which items we're going to use, have had to talk to the bookkeepers and unsort a mess in QuickBooks because somebody in ConstructionSuite that's either a new employee or somebody that's not used to estimating has gone in and created a bunch of new items or edited the names or changed the way that the structure is laid out, and in turn has kind of unintentionally wreaked havoc on the QuickBooks items list and created a bunch of new content that didn't need to be there. And so this is going to be the solution to that, is that in ConstructionSuite, you can now go down to this bottom left corner where it says Lock Estimate. And you'll see that I have quite a few options for what to lock down here. The first one we're going to look at, just to show you how it works, is to lock everything. So at this point, typical scenario, you go through the estimate, you work everything out, get your final contract price in, generate a proposal, and it's signed off. Well, at that point, your estimate is really going to be read-only, with the exception of any change orders. There is no reason to change the estimate information other than adding change orders to it, or potentially, of course, adding actual cost or importing from QuickBooks. So if you lock everything down, you'll see I get some nice visual indicators at the top. The columns go gray. I get lock icons on here. And if I try to click into these cells, I can highlight them, but you'll see a cursor doesn't come up. I'm hitting my keyboard right now, try to type in numbers. It does not let me edit these. And if you try to change something like a drop down or a unit, it actually lets you know that this estimate is locked, and you can't assign this value or you can't edit this value without unlocking the estimate first. And so with that, I guess a pretty basic question that is probably going to be asked here shortly if I don't answer it is, who has access to lock the estimate, or who controls this? And the simple answer to that really is that the administrator users in ConstructionSuite will be able to lock and unlock estimates, and everybody else will just get what they get based on what the settings are. And administrator users, by the way, for those of you unfamiliar, can be set in the Tools menu under the Company and User Configuration. If you go to the User Config, you can actually click on each of your users and see whether they are a regular user or an administrator. Of course, only administrators can make other people administrators, so if you have one admin and 5 non-admins, you're going to have to pester that admin user to actually make you an administrator in ConstructionSuite if you want this type of control. So back in the estimate, if we take a closer look at some of these columns, I'm going to highlight a few that are kind of my favorites based on different scenarios that we deal with a lot with clients. And one of them is going to be, as I mentioned before, the ability to lock the structure. And what this does is that it keeps the estimate structure in place to where the move up, move down, outdent, and indent options are disabled. So if I try to do that, it tells me that I can't. That prevents you from moving items from one subcategory to another, prevents you from changing the hierarchy for when it goes over to QuickBooks. Typically when you're doing this, in tandem with this is going to come the lock names option, because names with QuickBooks integration and for many other reasons need to be consistent. So if you're doing any sort of accounting or job costing or reporting on these, you have the same names for the item across jobs so that you're comparing apples to apples instead of apples to oranges, or in some cases apples to chipmunks. There's no telling what these names could be changed to. Number 4 rebar for one person could be, metal piping for another person. Who knows? So keeping those names consistent is very important for many reasons, especially with QuickBooks integration. And for those of you who are on the financial side of the company in this webinar today, I'm sure you are very appreciative of that. For those of you who aren't dealing with QuickBooks right now, aren't dealing with the QuickBooks side of things, I should say, and are working in the estimates, you'll appreciate it as well. You might not really know it, but it's going to save you a lot of trouble from dealing with the wrath of your bookkeeper or your accountant if you accidentally send over a bunch of new items by changing their names. So I will say that if anybody's lost as to what I'm actually talking about with that and doesn't know why changing names would affect your QuickBooks, please give us a call. We'd love to talk to you about that and make sure that you are in full understanding of kind of how the two systems interact together and what the consequences of changing some of this content might be, so that we can avoid a situation like that before it happens. So that is one of the options, and I'm actually going to circle back around. I see a question that came through about Assemblies and asking about Assemblies updating back into a custom database. And so I'll take a few angles at this question a little bit, and I'm going to assume a little bit as far as the context of this question. But when you enter that assembly from the items database, like from RS Means or from your custom database, into the estimate, the information that it comes in with is going to be pulled from the database, but it at that point will be linked only by name. So if you go back to the database and update the quantities in that assembly and refresh the item costs, it will update the estimate assembly. If you edit the assembly in the estimate, however, that does not go back and then update the cost book assembly quantities. This is something that is a one-directional driving force, I guess, and it's very intentional. If you want to make a sweeping change to where every future estimate's going to be changed, you do it in the database. If you're wanting to make a one-time change for only this job, you do it in the estimate. So those are things that after you've entered the assembly from the database, it is its own entity. Making those changes to quantities or to the assembly items is not going to then go and repopulate that in the database. However, there are some nifty tools, not only with assemblies, but with estimates as well. And would you look at that, I've locked myself out. Not only with assemblies, but with estimates as well, where you can actually go into the tools and import items from an estimate to create a brand new custom cost book. So with some of the templates we provide for you, as well as any other estimates that you've already created by hand, once you've created that, if you have your estimate structure, if you have your costs entered into that database, or into that estimate, what you can do is take advantage of all that hard work that you've done by putting your costs in and getting your structure together, and go ahead and go back to the items database, create a database for that. And I'll actually do that really quickly. I'll import items from, let me save this estimate to a project because I can't choose it yet until I do. I'll save this to my Deaton cabin project. And so now that I have this estimate with my divisions, my categories, my items, I can go back into the items database and say, I want to keep these costs stored as quotes. Go to my tools, import items from estimates, find this estimate in the Deaton cabin, and choose all of the sections that I want to be part of my cost book. And now I'll name it. So we'll call this UDA Custom Cost Book. And with a few clicks of a button, of course, you've already put in the work to generate a new estimate, or maybe you've imported it from PlanSwift and it's been the click of a button. But now I have a brand new cost book here in my list that has all of my categories and subdivisions in it. I've got all of my items, and their quotes have also been pulled in from the estimate, so I know that scaffolding rental is $129 each. I should probably use better units here for hours or per days, whatever it may be. Concrete pumps are $650 for the equipment. All of this is going to be automatically created in a database, and this can then be used, each of these items can be used to create new assemblies in your database, which can then in turn be inserted into estimates. So it's a nice circle and a nice kind of process that works there, creating an items database from an estimate, using those items and their quotes to create new assemblies if you need to, which can then in turn be cycled back into your estimates in the future for easier access and easier manipulation. So again, I know some of you won't be using assemblies. It's not standardized enough for you to do that, or maybe your cost data is already coming from RS means or from historical data. Perfectly fine. Maybe down the road you'll find a use for this. It's important to know what's available to you so that you're not using the wrong tool for the job, even if you're not using it right now. And so with this, back to the lock estimate features, before we kind of circle back to that, there are a few other situations that I think most of our users will find useful. You can lock the costs on these items as well. So again, if you go through an estimate and lock the structure, lock the names, maybe lock everything except for the quantities and dimensions, what that allows you to do is create a template that is bulletproof, or for lack of a better term, idiot-proof. It makes sure that when somebody's going through and doing the next estimate, if you've taken the time to go through and put together a solid template and you want to make sure that work doesn't go to waste, you can lock everything down except the quantity. So then when somebody comes through and generates a new estimate from this template, all they do is go through and fill in the quantities for this job. You still have the same items, still have the same cost for each item. There's still material or labor depending on what you specified them as. And they'll just go through and actually set the quantities for each of these right here in the job. And that's the only thing they can edit. They can't change the cost, they can't change the classification, they can't change the name. They're just telling you how many this job's going to need, and that's going to end up giving you the final contract price and what this estimate is going to cost. So many uses for that. Let's browse a little bit more and see what else we have with the locked columns. Locking QuickBooks, of course. I keep circling back around to QuickBooks because with estimating, it's really going hand in hand. But locking QuickBooks is pretty crucial for, again, those of you who have gotten in trouble or some hot water before for sending information that you weren't supposed to or prematurely, or really if you're an owner and just don't want your employees messing with your QuickBooks, perfectly fine. You can lock the QuickBooks down. What that does is when you come to this QuickBooks Integration tab, any button you click is going to tell you that you can't do it. You can't import, you can't export, nothing touches QuickBooks, it's all stuck here in ConstructionSuite, and so you've got the ability to lock that down as well. When you get your hands on this, feel free to browse and take a look. I'm sure those of you who are looking to lock items in your estimate already know which fields those are or which parts of the estimate those are. Should be here under one of these checkboxes. Every column in the estimate is included under one of these, so there's nothing that you are excluded from locking down. It's just a matter of figuring out what the best process for you is and what you need access to. Now that we're looking at this, lots of great features in there. I'm going to take a quick browse through some of our questions, and a couple questions coming through, I guess, about QuickBooks integration and about some enhanced estimating features that aren't necessarily new or maybe don't quite exist. If we have a little bit of time at the end of the webinar, I may circle back to those for kind of a curiosity standpoint. But we will be circling back around to any unanswered questions here in just a minute once we wrap up with some of these other new features. So hang on to those, stick around, and we will circle back to those after we take a look at these final 2 or 3 features. And one of them, now that we've been creating estimates and talking about estimate templates and locking those down, I'm pretty excited to announce that we have, what feels like after a very long time coming, introduced project templates in ConstructionSuite. So many of you have achieved much of the same effect by duplicating projects in the past, kind of creating projects that act as templates. We've crossed the line now and actually allowed you to do templates by name in ConstructionSuite. So if you create a project here in our system that has a folder structure, that has an estimate, that has a schedule, and it's going to be prototypical of a of a kitchen remodel, or of a single-story custom home, or of a restaurant renovation, whatever it is that you're doing a lot of, or doing over and over again, spec homes, of course, you can take a project like, let's say, this lot 150 Baldwin. Let me find one that has a little more content in here. So maybe we're going to do Georgetown, potentially. I'll get there someday. Let's just go back to this lot 150. I think that had a schedule. It had some project files in it. If we go back to our projects list, I can right-click on the lot 150, and actually create a template from this project. And by doing that, you'll see it copies over all the files and folder structure, copies the estimates, copies the schedules, copies the resources that are associated with it. And now I've got this template that's been created for the copy of lot 150 Baldwin Park. And what that does for me is, as I mentioned, when I go to create a new project, in the project wizard, we now have the ability to choose a template to mimic this off of. And we will say spec home number 1 is our project. And we're going to pull from that lot 150 Baldwin Park template. And so by clicking that, that will automatically populate, again, files, folders, estimates, schedules that I've saved in that template. It also does, by default, carry over your project info, so address, client info, things like that. But here on the project wizard, of course, you have the ability to enter specific information for the client on this job. Let's say Jack Martin for the address. I'm actually going to leave the address blank so that you can see that's populating from the lot 150. And so when I do that, I'll go ahead and finish this out, create the project. And right here on creation for spec home number 1, you'll see that I've got the schedule. I've got my related contacts. I've got activities showing up from that schedule, and I might not have had an address for lot 150, so that didn't populate in, but the clients that I've copied over, the address that is copied over, those will actually be available. And you can also, an alternative method of creating a template would be to actually go into a project and click this button. So going through option number 2, if I would have gone to lot 150 and edited this, I could have also created a template from this project by clicking this nice blue button. And so that's going to streamline, again, that's kind of the name of the game at this point. Feature-wise, ConstructionSuite has been pretty complete for a long, long time. There's always wish lists or enhancements that we can do, but anything you need to run your business is here in ConstructionSuite. Estimating, scheduling, job costing, insurance tracking, task lists, lead tracking, you name it. Anything that is critical to running an operation, it's going to be in here in some way, shape, or form. So we've had a lot of fun in the last couple of years adding some of those wish list features, really going above and beyond and getting raising the bar from year to year with ourselves of what we can actually add and where we can find additional value. And of course, a lot of that comes down to streamlining the operations that we already have. So templates may only save you a couple minutes here and there, but it's going to add up. Assemblies, same thing. Importing from PlanSwift, that's going to save you a lot more than a couple minutes, but all of this adds up, and every new product that we come out with for ConstructionSuite, we're really looking for ways to make your life easier and your job faster. And just another example of that is in some of our grid views, like projects and contacts, leads and opportunities, you now have the ability to edit this information right here in grid. So previously, you'd be used to right-clicking, edit project, going to details or address or info, and making the changes there. Now, you can come straight into the grid, type in address info, type in client information, and go straight through the grid and make changes very quickly instead of opening up each and every modal. Of course, some of these fields are locked down. You can't change the base estimate cost here in the grid because that's coming from your actual estimate. You can't change the type of these because they're tied to dimensions and workflows as well. But those are things that you will actually have the ability to change on most of these grids. Contacts, of course, if I go over here, I can change the city that the contact's in. I can change the contact name if I actually have the first name and last name over here. And it's much, much easier than those modals that we had. So again, everything coming back to the exact same point of making your life easier, streamlining the processes that you're already doing, and just taking the extra half step out of it so that as you repeat these tasks day in and day out, you find yourself finishing up your work at 3 o'clock instead of 5:30. And so a lot of great content in here that we've added for streamlining, for additional functionality, error-proofing your estimates with the locking down and things like that. Just really trying to make every change we can for you to improve your daily processes without changing the system as a whole. Of course, this looks very similar to ConstructionSuite 8, and that's intentional. People don't like to learn new softwares every time an update comes out. So we've kept what we can the same, haven't moved everything around on you, made it to where you have to go to, projects and then a second tab to find your schedules, have to go, down into the calendar to find your to-dos. Nothing like that's changing. It's going to look and feel very similar, so you're not having to learn a whole new software. But the new features that are in here are going to come very naturally, like the in-grid editing. Those are things that we're very happy to introduce and hope that you guys will find a lot of use out of them. The final thing that I would really like to point out, and this is going to appeal extremely heavily to part of our audience, and many of you guys might not even consider this, but I'm really happy to introduce that we have officially begun a partnership with Amazon for Amazon Web Services, which is their cloud hosting and their web servers. And really what that's going to mean for you guys is we are going to start offering cloud hosting for ConstructionSuite to those of you looking for it. And so by partnering with Amazon, we've been able to host ConstructionSuite on the cloud for years now through third-party applications. We've partnered with programs like Cloud9, like MyQuickCloud, Rackspace, GoDaddy. Any of those programs have always been able to host ConstructionSuite in their own cloud environments. But what we're bringing to the table now is a commitment to increase the longevity and the mobility of ConstructionSuite to those of you looking for more cloud-based or mobile-based options. And by partnering with Amazon and getting certified as one of their AWS or Amazon Web Services distributors, we actually put the software in the hands of those who know it best, which is us. And so instead of depending on third-party IT or cloud services who don't know a thing about ConstructionSuite, how it's installed, how it works, and causing more trouble with conference calls with you and your cloud provider, we've taken it upon ourselves to actually provide those services for you now, to where we can install ConstructionSuite licenses on our own cloud servers hosted through Amazon, which gives us regions and availability zones throughout the world. There's not a name or not a person out there in the audience right now that doesn't know who Amazon is, and that's because they've got the best coverage, the best services of really any company in the world, and are steadily growing. And we're really proud to partner with them so that we can guarantee that as far as cloud hosting goes, we are bringing you the absolute best coverage, the best connection, and the best experience that you'll have with cloud-hosted software, and make it a lot easier to get started and installed by doing it ourselves. So other programs I know take up to 2 weeks sometimes for them to get ConstructionSuite installed with their virtual machines and partitioning it out so that you're sharing a server with 500 other people and they're making sure that you don't have access to do anything other than access ConstructionSuite. We'll have a lot more control over that, make it very easy for you to get started and make that transition. The cloud hosting will only be available with certain versions of ConstructionSuite, of course, that have server licenses like Developer, Corporate, Network, and Enterprise. If you're interested in that and want to know more about pricing, if you're not already on those versions, give us a call. We'd be happy to talk to you about what that looks like and what it means. The cloud hosting is not available right at this second. We actually have one of our colleagues finishing up the certification program today as we speak. So we're really excited to kick that off. But if you call up after this webinar, we're not going to be able to start you on it just yet. But that is something that we are extremely excited about, are really looking forward to getting some of that up and running. I know we've had a lot of clients asking about, UDA offered cloud hosting for quite a while. And that's something that we have been really eager to announce and are really proud to bring that to you guys. So that being said, definitely look forward to that. A lot of great options and a lot of great doors that opens for the cloud hosting. I'm going to take a quick minute, look back through these questions. I know, as always, Holly has been firing answers back left and right, trying to keep up with them all. But it's one against the world, really, in Holly's situation. So many people are in here and sending questions in that she's probably having to stop and stretch her hands out a little bit. So I'm going to give her a break, put you guys on pause for about a minute or two here, look over some of these questions, and then I'll circle back around with the ones that still need to be addressed. So hang tight, and I'll be right back with you. All right, everyone, thanks for hanging in there. We are back now, and I've had a chance to look through some of these outstanding questions, and the overwhelming majority of them are focused on two major questions. One of them was, I guess, about a recording of this webinar and figuring out how you can rewatch this or revisit some of the topics that we've covered today. We have certainly recorded the webinar today, and as soon as our editing team can get the quality beefed up and get that onto our YouTube channel, it will be available. So keep an eye out for that. We'll certainly notify you guys if you're subscribed to the YouTube channel that it is available. If you're not subscribed, you can find us at UDA Technologies on YouTube. Just search for our channel. Lots of great content, videos, webinars that we've posted there, and you'll be notified of any new ones, including this one that comes out. The other question, unsurprisingly, that we have gotten very, very many of have been, when is this going to be available? And I'm actually happy to announce that starting tomorrow, we will be beginning to roll these out in waves to our clients. And so any Total Care members are eligible for an upgrade from your current version to ConstructionSuite 9 for free as part of your Total Care. If you're not on Total Care, we've got some great specials for upgrading for some heavily discounted rates based on your current ownership or previous ownership of ConstructionSuite. So if you're interested in this at any time starting tomorrow, please feel free to give us a call. We will be, like I said, sending this out in waves, but if you're interested in getting on a early release or kind of the first wave, please give us a call and we'll be happy to do that. And of course, as many of you guys know, it's a better time than ever to get started with this right before the end of the year, saving on some of those taxes and getting started with ConstructionSuite. There's some really great tax breaks to take from actually spending your investment on this before the new year starts. So as we mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, never a better time than the beginning of the new year or right before the beginning of the new year to get started with this. We'd love to get this in your hands and start getting some feedback. I know many of you have been eagerly awaiting these features for varying amounts of time. But I hope you guys are equally as excited as we are. Give us a call starting tomorrow. We'll start reaching out and upgrading our clients tomorrow as well. So hopefully we can meet somewhere in the middle. There were a couple other questions coming through here as well that are unanswered. Most of them are very specific questions, specific to kind of single users or certain scenarios that for the general audience here in the webinar probably won't be a great topic to spend any length of time discussing. So we would love to talk to you about them, make sure that you're getting the advice you need or some of your questions answered. If you'd like to call in and speak with any of our product specialists one-on-one, we encourage you to do that. We're always here, during office hours, of course, to help you guys out. So would love to address those in more detail, but probably not the time or place right now. So if you do have a question that's been unanswered, we'll try to be reaching out via email to make sure those are handled. But if you'd like to give us a call as well, please do. But other than that, we will start rolling this out in the early release tomorrow. Looking forward to it and can't wait to get your hands on it. So thank you so much for attending. Like I said, any outstanding questions that weren't answered today, give us a shout. We'll be happy to go through them with you and look forward to lots of new and exciting things to come. Have a great afternoon.